as many of you all know, Eric founded, sorry, that's my default state because of Teddy. Founded Zoom in 2011, one of the most impactful technologies in the last 25 years or more. But prior to Zoom, just to give a little more context, and we'll go into this, Eric was, of course, corporate vice president of engineering at Cisco, responsible for Cisco's collaboration software, was also the founding engineer and VP of engineering at WebEx, so has been like a defining builder of communication and collaboration for a very long time. And I think that you will probably not want me to talk about your accomplishments, but I'm gonna talk about one, which I think is really incredible. Eric was inducted to the National Academy of Engineering, which is the highest distinction accorded to an engineer in 2025, which is truly amazing. So thank you for coming, Eric. I really appreciate it. And I want to get started at the beginning. I talked about great things start in little rooms. I know that you have your version of starting in a little room, but can you tell a little bit of the story for founding Zoom? I want to start with actually like the personal problem part of it, which is the 10-hour train rides. And do you mind telling that story for a minute or two?
Free. Yeah. I think first of all, I appreciate for every customer and for using our BrightHire platform for any of those potential customers. I can tell you, BrightHire is such a great platform. Please make sure you deploy that platform. And
you read the prep notes. Yeah.
That's the whole reason I'm here. Thank you. Yeah. So back to your question, and actually, I started a company 2011 and summertime 2011. I think around the spring time frame of 2012, I think the team, they built the prototype. I remember the first time I played around our prototype, and video qualities were so awesome. And I remember I connected with one for the engineers. Just literally at that time, from a usability perspective, better than today. I just one click, video works so well, audio works so well. You do not need to do anything. So literally one click, I can talk with the engineer. And at that time, suddenly I could connect the dots. Meaning when I was in college, and my girlfriend, she lived in a different city, right? And once, twice a year, I could visit her. And it's 10 hours, the train, and it's so hard. At that time, I had a daydream. I thought about, in the future, if I can hold a small device, one click, I can talk to her, see her, that'd be amazing. I thought about so many times, but I never thought about building a product. Until we had a product, I could connect the dots. So, yeah, that's the story.
I know you had a notion of, you had so much experience building a video conferencing stack, and you had a notion of how it could be done better, and you tried to do it in another environment, and it didn't work out, and you got the conviction to take the leap and do it yourself. Can you talk about that story, and then why did you have conviction to say, like, I'm going to do it myself?
So, every morning when I woke up, and I can tell you, not like now every day when I woke up, I was pretty happy. Back to 2010 timeframe, every morning when I woke up, I didn't want to go to office. I think, why should I go to office? Because every time when I stop by at the office and I receive all those complaints from customers, your video quality really sucks, usability is bad. I think, it's driving me crazy. And, I managed a bigger team. If I was not happy.
You were at Cisco?
Yeah, Cisco. Yeah. And I think I tried to fix that problem within the, and at Cisco at that time. Because there were so many other priorities, and they were unwilling to change. I couldn't suffer from that. I want to live to build a better solution to deliver happiness back to WebEx customers. That's pretty much. If they were willing to change, probably I was still stuck there. So luckily they did not change. So.
But you had no thoughts or doubts like, will this work? Will this not work? You were just singular minded, and you were confident that. Yeah.
I was for sure. I knew I could build a better solution. That's the only thing I knew.
Yeah.
Other than that, I have no idea, actually.
Yeah. I want to talk about culture a little bit, and then we'll go into some of the more of the story. But you built Zoom around delivering happiness, and like the first thing I think a lot of us noticed when we did kind of the onboarding was like culture of care and kind of those ethos. Where did those come from? Like where did those originate? Like the culture of care, delivering happiness, and sort of like the amount of focus that you put on it, which is quite a bit.
So I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997. the reason why I love Silicon Valley is because I think Silicon Valley has a very unique, great culture where there's so many successful people. They are willing to help you out whenever you try to seek for the help. So along the way, I had so many, mentors or successful entrepreneurs, CEOs, help him a lot. And they all told me one thing. And when you build a company, really focus on culture. I really did not understand. And when I was working for WebEx Cisco, but when I started, I realized, the culture indeed is number one, the most important thing. So that's why on day one, when I left and started the company, I wrote down the company culture and the company value. It's very simple. Our company culture just in 2 words: deliver happiness. The value, just one word: care. And the reason why we have that culture and value is because, no matter what we do, right, we all try to get a clear answer about the purpose of life, right? What's the purpose of life? So from my perspective, the purpose of life is to pursue the sustainable happiness, because every day we want to be happy, right? And the most sustainable happiness coming from making others happy. So like I'm the CEO of Zoom. If I can make our employee happy, together we make our customer happy, make you guys happy, I'm happier. That's pretty simple. That's the reason why I have the culture and the values. If I care about you, care about our customers, you are willing to pay us, we can survive. I keep delivering a better solution, right? That's a win-win, right? That's the reason why you have very, very different culture and value. And the stay with that and the double down on investing your culture and value, eventually you can build a very successful company.
So you weren't writing down lots of ideas like what the value should be, now cross it off, that's not right. You knew right away, and it was very, very clear.
Yeah, on the first day. And also in addition to assembling used furniture also first day. So
every business, every startup goes through twists and turns. It's
pretty
kind
much
of inevitable,
a lot,
right?
Yeah.
So many people were introduced to Zoom during the pandemic, and from the outside, it was sort of like, obviously, over, success story, 7 years in making, or what 10 years in the making, but
9 years.
9 years, sorry. From the outside, looking in is one thing, but can you talk about what that was like? Because I know a little bit, but like from the inside, what was that? That was a truly crucible moment. Can you talk about what was that experience like behind the scenes, and what did you draw or learn from that? Because I think you couldn't have imagined a bigger twist, let's call it. So
it's a few years later, looking back, it's still crazy time because, look at our, in terms of daily meeting participant, end of 2019, around 10 million daily meeting participant. March, April, all the way jumped to more than 350 million. This is crazy, the jump in terms of traffic. I think luckily, because our great culture, and during that, few months time frame, I did not see a single Zoomies they complain about anything. They all worked very, very hard around the clock, and because we know actually this is the best time, for Zoom, right, to truly help the world, make the world a much better place. We offer free services to so many K-12 schools, and our service was so reliable. And look at my personal story. I can tell you, I had way more sleepless nights than any time in my career, because quite often you're working together with all the people around the world at more data centers, or servers in India, Europe, Japan, and here. I think behind the scenes we were working so hard, and we felt very proud. This is a once in a life opportunity, right? When the world they count on you, you have to think about what you can do to make sure don't let the world down. So looking back, that's probably one of the highlights in our journey.
Were there any lessons learned that you took away? Because you can't foresee that, and so obviously a really unique opportunity to.
Great question. I think a few lessons learned. First of all, again, if you do not have a great culture, when that happens, I'm pretty sure actually everyone will complain. They see, why should I work so hard? Why should I do this, do that, right? So the heavy, I would say if you do not have a great culture, I feel like I really think we probably already failed at that time, because look at our competitors. The service is very unreliable, something wrong, no one tried to fix the problem. on the same day. So we never had those issues. That's one. It's a great culture, really help us. That's one. Two, you have to make sure you have a great right architecture for your product. Because luckily we made the right decision. Even before we build a product, we always told ourselves, what if there's 10 times more traffic or 100 times more traffic? Are you going to rewrite your code or not? Do you have a sustainable architecture? So we did not change a single line of our code. We just add more servers. We survived very well. So the culture and the architecture, I think those two things is extremely important. And another lesson I learned is no matter how hard you're working on anything, you have to enjoy it. That's very important. And I think at that time, I remember I have a lot of great moments, right? So we all joined on Zoom with family, high school reunions, of friends. Otherwise, you stuck at home for such a long time. If you do not enjoy that, and it could cause a lot of, I think a personal, mental health problem. So yeah.
That was obviously a unique twist in terms of magnitude. Are there any other ones that stick out, even if they were a little bit smaller magnitude, that were pivotal kind of twists and turns in the journey that you feel like could have sent the company in one direction or another, thinking back a little bit?
For sure, prior to going public, and some others might want to acquire us, right? So I really, because I moved to Silicon Valley in 1997, I have a personal dream. I really want to build a public company to ring the bell, right? Not Nasdaq bell. So in New York. So, and I think, we made the right decision. So, and there's so many others, they want to acquire us. So I think, no, let's go to New York. So, and so.
Was ringing the bell as cool as you were hoped?
That's the best moment.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of highest,
Obviously, another twist in every company's journey is AI, of course.
AI drives me crazy. So.
Yeah, well, it's a good segue.
Yeah.
Can you compare AI to other inflection points you've lived through? Maybe it's like the internet, internet 1.0 or 2.0, in terms of magnitude. How do you compare it?
In terms of magnitude, I would say, over the past 30 years, like from PC, mainframe PC, the internet, mobile, cloud, you add all of them up, still cannot compare with
Really?
AI. Still cannot compare. I think only one technology, my personal opinion, may be electricity. Probably in terms of impact to society is more than AI. I think AI probably ranks second. But even you compare with electricity, when electricity was invented, right, it still take a few years, right, to impact, positive impact society. But AI, literally within 3 years, look at the impact today. It's unprecedented. I did not see any other technology in terms of the impact to society within a so short a period of time, like AI. So
this is going to sound like a very elementary question. Why do you think that? Is it because it changes the nature of work? Is it just like all the things? Is there something specific about the nature of the technology itself?
If I know AI, I already built an AI company a few years ago. But anyway, I think it's more like, you look at AI, it's many years of hard work, from so many, scientists, researchers, right? It's not like suddenly we have AI. It's, many years hard work over the past 30 years. And then with the Google's transformer, the paper with a lot of NVIDIA GPU. And finally, I think, it's kind of, AI was built upon so many other technologies, right? Finally, AI is kind of a right time. So, and that's pretty much, the right time, right technology, so.
To go back, you said like it's driving me crazy, but it's a good segue because obviously, the impact is staggering, as you noted. There's big companies that are declaring code reds, internally, and what's it? Can you give a sense for what's it like actually sitting in a CEO seat, observing the rapid changes and how fast things move, and trying to make bets, trying to figure out what to do and where to take action when things are moving really quickly?
I would like to delegate it to my CEO job to AI. It's better to let AI make a decision for me. The reason why it is so hard for now because I'm an engineer. I even cannot catch up with the AI speed because today you evaluate one AI model, a new technology. You think you are ahead of others. Guess what? Next week you lag behind because some other new technology, new models, new framework is coming. So you have to, kind of really, I would say, is nimble, right? So make sure either you or your team, everyone got to think about what if new technology, what if other company, what if this, what if that? It's kind of, uncertainty is becoming certainty now, essentially. So it's hard to make a decision. Like you build a technology, a few years ago, right? Before the AI era, you talk with the customer, you understand the pinpoint. You say, come back, let's invest the 50 engineers, you build a product. You know for sure you can survive because this is customer pinpoint. But now, even if you understand the customer pinpoint, you invest the 50 engineers, you build a solution. You need to think about what if a new startup, only 5 engineers, they can use advanced AI coding tools, they can build a technology maybe 2 days. Can you survive? If that's the case, are you still willing to invest to this new product? This is kind of a challenge we are facing. It's opportunity there, also a challenge. Are you willing to invest or you want to build something else? This is every day, you have to make a tough decisions. So
nimbleness was sort of one, it's like, there's this idea of like what kind of company thrives in an AI environment. Obviously, nimbleness is one trait that's really important. Are there any other things that you think are going to separate the winners from the rest
For sure, like in a physical world, in San Francisco, right? We all like Waymo, right? If you service like this, Waymo, right? It's kind of my friend Takira's company. If you're a company like this, you do not need to worry about AI impact, right? Hardware or physical world. And in the AI era, I think we have more time. Right? You play sports, right? Entertainment. You play games, right? Like EA games, right? So all those the business, I think will thrive. Will do very well. And pure software, you have to think about: do you have a solid mood or not, right? And what can you do to leverage AI to reinvent yourself? That's the key.
Yeah. You obviously think a lot about communication and collaboration, and can you talk about how AI is going to change? And you've talked about this a little bit. How's it going to change communication and collaboration? Right? We've talked about digital twins and agents, and so what's like your vision, or how do you think communication is going to unfold in an AI world?
I think AI world for sure. In terms of communication experience, for sure it will be better and better. I give one example. We're a public company. I joined the quarterly earnings call. Used to be, I do not like that experience because either I recorded a script or during the Zoom webinar, I need to read the script. I hate that experience. So, and a few quarters ago, we leveraged our AI technology. I just created my AI avatar. During the Zoom webinar, I just play back AI avatar. I truly enjoy that experience.
So just to be clear, you pre-read it. How does this work?
I do not read anything. So, for live Zoom webinar, right? And our marketing team use my AI avatar. Let me take a step back. So I created my own AI avatar, which is just 30 seconds AI avatar. I'm done. I give this AI avatar to our marketing team. Marketing team use the quarterly earnings transcript, regenerate a video. Feel like it's my own video. It works so well.
You've automated all the bad parts of being public, and you've got to ring the bell.
Exactly. And I joined a webinar just for live Q&A. That's pretty much right. This is kind of I like this. And you speaking of a digital twin, let's put it this way. See, you are my potential customer, and you and I negotiating a contract, right? Probably 1 hour meeting, 45 minutes, you negotiate all the typical terms, right? Yeah. What if you send your digital twin, I send my digital twin, let those two digital twins work together, right? To come up with a potential preliminary solution, and then you and I can jump on that, right?
Yeah, we do the last 10%.
Exactly. Yeah. I think how cool it is, right? So that's a digital twin, and also avatar. I think, and especially for some meetings or in webinars, you don't want to join but your boss there, right? You still want to join. What can you do? Send your digital avatar, right? Or digital twin, right? To join. But at the same time, for the very important meetings, you need to make sure have deep fake technology also built in, right? It's very important board meetings, right? I meeting with Ben. If you send maybe a deep fake video, maybe, you also need to make sure, manage that well as well. But overall, I think it gives us flexibility.
I will not send a deep fake to a conversation with you.
You can, as long as I know that's a deep fake bin, that's okay. So AI gives us more flexibility when you want to join in person. Yeah.
What pieces of communication, collaboration, business do you think just need to fundamentally remain human, right? And
I think in-person conversation like this, I do not think I can send my AI avatar here, so that not work.
Yeah.
I think in-person conversation will become more and more important and critical. I think no matter how powerful AI is, I do not think AI can replace, the emotions, right? So that is very important because in conversation like this is very important. So
building on the idea that like kind of the human connection in person is important, et cetera. Can you talk about the team side of the Zoom story? Like what have you learned? How important has been like the talent, the team? What did you learn about during the Zoom journey in terms of the team you build and how that impacts your success? And like, do you feel the same? Like, has any of that changed in the age of AI in terms of the way that you view that?
So prior to COVID, I would say I felt very proud of Zoom culture because every day, seriously, when I wake up, I think, wow, this is indeed the company I wanted to work for, I wanted to build. We had such a great culture, and everyone cares about the customer, care about each other. This is kind of the best time, and look at our journey. The reason why, because the talent is probably the number one important thing if you want to build a successful company. Because even if you have a great product, if you do not recruit the top talents, very soon your product will suck, right? Because you have those not great engineers, right? And so to recruit the talents is extremely important, but you have to focus on quality rather than quantity. You cannot see this quarter, I have to hire 500 engineers. That not work. The quality is very important. That's why our philosophy back then was we wanted to hire slowly, grow slowly. The reason why we want to focus on quality until 2020. And during the COVID, I think I made a huge mistake. And every department say, oh, traffic 10 times, 20 times more. They all want to hire more. They want me to approve a lot of open racks. I did approve those open racks. That's why within the 18 months window, we hired more than 6,000 employees. That's a huge mistake. The culture completely broken. So looking back, that's one of the biggest mistakes, right? So hire slowly, hire the top talents, focus on quality rather than quantity. That's a lesson I learned. Even today, we are almost there. We are almost out of the woods now in terms of culture, but that's the biggest lesson I learned. So,
have you thought about people that are going to be successful in the age of AI? You talked about nimbleness.
Age of AI, I think no big difference in terms of the culture. And maybe I take a step back what I said. I think the talent is becoming even more important in the age of AI. The reason why I think this way, you hire a very good individual contributor, right? If it's a good one, and just the one individual contributor. In the AI era, guess what? One good engineers or one good sales AEs, they can employ so many digital agents to work for you, right? Can amplify this individual contributor, right? If you hired not so good employees, guess what? The negative impact is also much bigger because he or she can also deploy so many agents, right? And that's why it's, in terms of impact to the business in the AI era, I think is even more critical if you do not have a greater team. So
you obviously recently brought BrightHire into Zoom.
Yeah, that's such a great team.
Why did you do that? Why was it a bet you wanted to take? What got you excited? Why? Can you give a little bit more context from
because maybe a story, and because we were BrightHire customer, and also we talk with many. We also investor, right? So and we talk with many mutual customers, and they all mention, hey, they deploy a BrightHire solution. They really like it. And more customers told us, and saying, yeah, if that's the case, why not join forces together? Because we were suffering from a problem where, we have to recruit the top talents. We do not have a great platform. After we deploy a platform, because maybe I share is one of the biggest problems I had. So no matter how good, how solid you think your recruiting process is, but after you recruit the talents, quite often 1 year later or 6 months later, it did not work out. You have no idea what had happened. What if something wrong in the recruiting process? You do not know. It's have to manually go back to who interviewed this candidate, who gave the rating high or rating low. Why is that? You cannot connect the dots. We want to have an end-to-end platform, starting from recruitment until the contribution to the company. If it works very well, we want to understand, the pattern, right? It's one end-to-end process. We do not have the process. That's why I think, BrightHire can play a big role, right? To help you establish a end-to-end, the talent recruitment process.
We think so too.
That's why we join forces together. So I think, especially in the AI era, right? Because let's be honest, you hire 500 people. 1 year later, how do you know, even without looking at the performance, to leverage AI? Those potential 500 candidates, those 450 will do well, those 50 not do well with the AI technology. Now, in the AI era, it's very possible now.
And you can query the data at scale in a way that even 24 months ago, you couldn't.
Absolutely.
So the capacity to find patterns and so forth. Yeah, it's an area that we're incredibly excited about, and we're incredibly excited to build on the platform. I want to take it back and talk a little bit about your CEO role a little bit. What's a big open question that you struggle with as a CEO today? Can you, and just like unpack, something that sort of keeps you up at night and that you're thinking a lot about?
There's too many. So
the short list.
Short list. I think a few things. Maybe one is, sometimes, because our culture is to deliver happiness, right? For me as the CEO, my number one priority is to make sure our employees, my direct reports happy, and together make a customer happy. But sometimes, in terms of some key decisions, I know we should, let's say, go with this path. Our team, especially those people I trust, they all told me that, no, that's not the right path. You should go a different path. My gut feeling is my decision should be right. But conflict with my team's recommendation. So I also want to make them happy. What should I do? It's kind of quite often I struggled. So, and that's one. Two is maybe related to this. Sometimes, being a CEO is it's a little bit tricky because you need to balance the short-term goal and the long-term bet, right? Those two sometimes also struggle because how long the goal is, how short the goal is, right? It's long-term and short-term, right? It's kind of a little bit tricky. So, and those two things probably always keeps him up in the night. So, yeah.
We talked about AI as a sea change moment. This is a very kind of disruptive time in work in general. There's a lot of executives in this room, leaders, that are navigating their own version of the moment, not just for their company, but for themselves personally. I'm a leader in a company. The world is changing. My role is changing. The business is changing. So operating in rapid kind of disruption. What's one or two pieces of advice that you think is going to be important for leaders, executives in an organization to thrive in the next couple of years as things are, the ground I would say is moving under folks' feet really quickly and businesses are shifting. What makes somebody thrive and be successful as in a leadership role, like one of your direct reports, if you think about those folks?
I think number one thing is when it comes to new technology, don't hesitate. Just embrace new technology as quickly as possible. No matter what kind of new technology, just to quickly embrace it. I think that's number one. Number two, no matter how good those technologies are, always think about you have to have your own, sort of a self-development formula to help you become a better version of yourself. That's very important, right? So embracing new technology, you become better version of yourself. I think you will do very well.
Are there any other traits that have consistently separated the top folks that have worked for you from everyone else?
I think number one thing is self-learning. That's kind of the reason why our hiring philosophy is very straightforward. Self-learning and self-motivation is very important. You really want to learn something by yourself, and also every day you motivate yourself as well. You don't want your manager to motivate you, right? So those two things are very important. Yeah.
Even more so in an age where AI can actually teach you things incredibly. So the capacity to learn, if you're curious, is
because with AI you can learn anytime, right? So you do not need to have go register the class, or have few mentors, right? You talk with multiple AI models, right? You can learn so many things.
All right, two more quick questions. So one, what's something that you're really excited about right now?
Really excited for all those prospects, right? Become BrightHire customer. So that's a number one. Number two is how to leverage AI to reinvent Zoom, right? For the next 10 years, build some exciting new stuff, new technology, maybe new solution we never thought about that. That is really important because every 5 to 10 years, if you do not reinvent yourself, you cannot survive. Not to mention AI, it's really disruptive technology, right? I keep thinking about it every day. About AI.
Do you believe we'll have a 4-day work week? Do you believe we will have a 4-day work week?
3 days.
3 days. Really?
My hero is Henry Ford, right? You look at the history. Yeah, happy to be this year is 100 years. 1926, he revolutionized the working week for his factory workers, right? From 6 days to 5 days. 100 years later, guess what? There's so many new technologies out there. We still work for 5 days. No difference after 100 years. Hopefully leverage AI eventually give us more time, right? Enjoy family time. Why Friday we should work, right? So seriously, human beings, we all work so hard to build technology. Why is that? The goal is to help the world, make the world much better. How to make the world much better? We have more time to stay with our family, right? To go to the beach, right? Enjoy the life. So again, we want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So 4 days, I'm pretty sure next few years, and it is going to happen.
Actually, I'm going to ask one more because, before I joined Zoom, I was listening to a podcast, and you talked about going to your kids' sports, and that really spoke to me. Like,
I did not miss any of my son's basketball practice back then. So
can you talk
the reason why 5 days, 4 days, I can enjoy more. So
talk about just for 1 second, like talk about that, your kind of dedication to that a little bit. Talk about the story, because I thought it was fascinating that you said, sort of like, even as you were scaling the business, going public, you went to every practice.
Yeah, because quite often employees always ask me, Eric, how to balance work and life to work. I told them, as long as you think of balance, there's no solution. That's a wrong way to look at this. I think I always mention, and some I always share with others. I think work is life is work. That's pretty simple. However, there's a conflict. Family first. You always part as family. And before I had my first the kid, a lot of friends told me that, Eric, and I'm pretty sure, and if you do not manage well, you are going to regret. If you do not spend enough time with kids. I listen to those advice, those mentors, friends very well. I try to spend all the time. That's the reason why I try to make Zoom better and better. The reason why I told our team I wanted to have 0 business travels. The reason why I can have more time with family, with kids. But today, if you ask me, do I regret anything since I started a company? Only one thing I regret, which is I should have spent more time with kids. That's it. That's the only one thing I regret. Literally before this, I just have a coffee with my son. He works for San Francisco company. I told myself, no matter how successful your business is, if business is not successful, you can fix that. But if kids grown up, you cannot go back. Right? This is very straightforward. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the support and being part of Zoom, and looking forward to the next
Thank
chapter.
you. So happy
you,
to
Eric.
be here. Yeah,
Awesome.
you built such a great business, and yeah, we really enjoy working together with Ben and BrightHire. And again, it's such a great solution. So
Questions? I'll open it up for a little
yeah,
Q&A.
feel free to have any questions, anything, feel free. So to me or to Ben, and
There's one, right?
Eric, thank you so much. This was so inspiring. It struck me when you mentioned one of your dilemmas was when your team told you this is the wrong way to go and you thought to go the other way. And while I understand the dilemma, I think it's also very powerful that your team was able to tell you this. Can you tell us a little bit about how you create this culture of candor that your team is able to give you this kind of feedback?
I should play back one of our e-staff meetings. So you will know that. So everyone in our e-staff meeting, Ben knows that, right? You can't disrupt that. It's feel like I can tell it's we give each other very honest, constructive feedback. And when Ben shares some ideas, sometimes I may not like, I immediately interrupt him. He can do the same as well. Because you have to build a culture where you all trust each other. And the goal is, intention is to make a company better, to make a better decision, right? I do not want everyone to be very polite, especially during the Zoom call, right? Zoom call already made everyone very polite, right? So we want to make sure open, transparent, and trust each other, and together we make the best decision, right? And the trust is everything, is the foundation. If I trust Ben knows that no matter what I can comment, no matter how I do not like his idea or decision, he will know that. My intention is really about to make a business better. Nothing is personal, right? I think a key is to build the trust, the culture, and that's why at Zoom, speed of trust is our favorite.
Has it always
book.
been that way? Have you always had that?
Yeah. From day one. Yeah.
Given your focus on culture and values in building Zoom, how did you assess whether there was a fit when you were deciding whether to go forward with the partnership with BrightHire?
I think, first of all, the culture got to be aligned, right? And we care about the customer, care about the employee. That's a really important thing. And if culture aligned, everything else is straightforward in terms of process, product strategy, go-to-market. Those kind of things is very manageable. Is especially the product in complements to what we're doing. I feel like if that's the case, I know this is already winning. So everything else is secondary. It's very manageable. So
I would say just from our perspective, we worked with the product team at Zoom since 2021. So we're in chat channels with a bunch of folks on the Zoom side. So at least from our vantage point, we had that element of the relationship. We knew the corporate development team because they had done an investment in the business, so we knew folks there. So and then we ultimately knew the folks on the TA team. So we actually knew 3 functions within the business for between 5 and 3 years each. And so from our, because it's a two-way street. So from our end, we kind of knew this is a really responsive group. They move fast. They just want to do the right thing. They're supportive partners, even though we're probably not the most important partner, frankly, for a lot of that journey. So I think those were, at least from our vantage point, pretty unique signals.
Yeah, please.
Thanks, Eric. You talk so much about culture. So what do you say to those people who say you can't have culture over Zoom and everyone has to return to office?
I'm sorry.
You said you talk a lot about culture. What do you think for folks that say you can't have a culture over Zoom and you have to be in the office and it has to be an in-person sort of paradigm for that?
Thank you. Great questions. So that's why in the person conversation, sometimes the microphone quality is not good. Zoom experience is much better. So
it's hard to build culture when you can't understand people. Yeah.
I know because far away with microphone, I do not. Anyway, so that's first of all, we look at this from a customer's perspective, from an end user perspective. I look at Zoom. Suppose we should fully embrace remote work, right? You really do not need the office, right? I think you look at our product, the nature, for sure, that should be the case. However, when you look at our customers, it's different. Most of our customers, they embrace hybrid work, right? twice or 3 days at the office or twice or 3 days at home. When we build a product to empower our customers to embrace hybrid work, if we do not embrace that, how could we eat our own dog food? Right? That's the reason why we adjust our working policy to let employee come back to office twice a week. The reason why we look at it, when we make a decision, we try to look at everything from a customer perspective. Internally, for sure, before we make that decision, employees, even some executive mention, you cannot do that. I think, no, we have to, because that's our principle. Look at everything from a customer perspective. Yeah.
Thank you. You spoke a lot about culture, and that really resonated with me. And I was wondering, how do you measure a cultural fit without it being subjective?
I do not think there's any way to measure culture. I hope I can figure out a solution. If you know how to measure culture, you can start a company, we would like to invest in you. So it's great business because everyone struggled. I do not think anyone knows how to measure that. However, you look at it from everything, right? From a customer feedback, right? Your partner feedback, your employee feedback, or maybe ultimately, could you still grow your business? Your revenue, profit, a lot of things. You added up all those things together, you have good culture or not. Prior to COVID, right? I can tell you, it's relatively rare for me to receive some negative feedback from our customers. Most of feedback very positive. Thank you, Zoom. I have a problem on Friday. Even before the weekend, your team worked so hard to already fix the problem. I had received so many comments like that. But over the past few years, it's not like that. I got some LinkedIn message, some customer mentioned, I'm very loyal customer for a long time. I called your support. I did not have the timely response, right? How can you help me? When you receive a lot of feedback like that, you know something wrong, right? This is one example, right? So you have to look at so many things to tell you have a good culture or not.
Customer's the truth teller.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes employees as well. Like for me, as a CEO, I do not talk with my direct report trying to understand what's going on. You have to, used to be, I always walk around the sales floor, talk with each individual sales rep. Are they happy or not, right? Talk to the individual engineers, try to get a sense, how productive they are. Do they have any issues? You also get a sense, do you have a good culture or not? So, yeah.
Thank you again for the conversation. It's really been insightful and inspiring. You had made the comment that you would be intrigued with the concept of an individual contributor leading a team of agents, right? So what do you see the corporate organization looking like into the future? We had a debate earlier about the impact on early talent. Some of us are seeing anecdotally that it is impacting hiring at the early talent level out of school plus a couple of years. And we're already starting to see, CEOs aspirationally having layoffs, things like the Square thing, et cetera. And aspirationally creating that void to be filled through innovation. I mean, what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so first of all, I fundamentally believe, right, AI can help us fully automate a lot of processes, but that does not mean AI can do everything on behalf of us, right? You still need to have a great team. You still need to focus on recruiting top talents, developing talents. You think this, if every company, they do not have any employees, they all hire digital agent. That's a very boring word, right? What do we do at that time? I really do not think that's the case. When AI can help us, maybe even to some extent replace some of the roles, I think you got to trust the human beings. Any new technology, we are going to create some new jobs, right? It's every time. I think for us to win, for many others as well, I think you still need to focus on developing talents, right? And because it used to be 10 developers, right? You probably can build one product. Now, if you leverage AI well, the 10 developers, they can build 10 products. Then you think about you have 100 developers, guess what? You can build so many other new things you never thought about it before, right? That's why imagination is becoming extremely important. Used to be, I even do not dare to think about, let's say, give one example. I never thought about to build hardware. I never thought about that. I do not dare to do that. Now with AI, I would say, yeah, maybe we can do that now, right? There's a lot of new opportunities. I think that's kind of why I'm still very optimistic.
You just think productivity is going to go?
Yeah, it's going to go up, give you more opportunities. You never thought about it before. You do not dare to do that before. It used to be you have to focus, because you have limited resources you have to fix. Now in AI era, I could say you might have unlimited resources. Imagination is key.
I had a question about what did you do differently between Cisco WebEx versus Zoom? Like, what was your thought that you were going to do differently, or Zig versus zagging?
Yeah, and I think you mentioned like we made a foundational architecture difference. As well, that was like one of the core things was like what you rebuilt differently with Zoom versus what was in place.
I think technology architecture is one thing. That's how you start, right? Because we know the weakness of that product. But the key is not about that. In my view, the key is how can you make sure you do not make the same mistakes as your former employer made. That's the key. I remember long time ago, 1999, year 2000, WebEx was a pretty good solution because I wrote a lot of code at that time. So, but along the way, guess what? You lose the focus to care about the customer. Every time a new feature, new service, you just add all those UIs, usability. Tell customer, have this, have that. They do not look at it from a customer perspective. And you add more features, the product becomes so hard to use, right? We want to make sure do not make the same mistake. Every day, you have to think about what can we do to make sure customers still enjoy using Zoom. Make sure we do not make the same mistakes. Otherwise, even you have a good start, but you might, have the same problem, as we had before at WebEx or Cisco WebEx. So that's the case. So meaning every day have to think about from a customer perspective, build a better product, care about a customer, make sure invest more to your talents, have great culture. By doing that, you'll be okay. So yeah. Otherwise, even if you have good architecture, so what? Next year, your architecture may not work anymore. So
there's one more over here.
Thank you, Eric. We are seeing the AI and HR transformation now. So what would be the one sentence suggestion you want to give to CEO for the change management? And also one sentence for the HR executives in this room, right? Just one for each.
For in terms of
change management.
And advice on change management to CEOs in terms of AI adoption, and then maybe for recruiting and HR leaders.
I think for CEO, I would say you have to double down, triple down, embracing AI. That's it. There's no any other way around to survive. For the HR leaders, recruit or develop those talents who would like to try something new. Meaning, whatever works before may not work now. You have to want to try something new in the AI era. Hire those talents, develop them. I think you can build a better company. So maybe that's a long sentence. So, but getting my point. Yeah.
All right, we'll do one more, and then we're gonna.
Appreciate it. Quincy from Lyft. This was great. I think my question, I started out just thinking I would give you a compliment earlier around just how, matter of fact, your accountability was around just, I approved those roles, and then we had to course correct. And so, one, thank you for that, because I think, with many talent leaders in here, when we have to go through layoffs at our companies, it's not a fun thing, and I can imagine not for you either, but maybe turning that into a question. We're here talking about data and AI. I am curious if, based on your experience having to do layoffs or any org design changes, how have you all used data and AI specifically to become better, or for you to be closer to workforce planning at your company, and how you think about making sure you all don't have to go through that again?
Yeah, you talk about the AI and the workforce management, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just in general, like becoming closer as a CEO to the people data of your company, and understanding how you can be closer to not having to go through, big org cuts like that again.
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to have leverage AI. Make sure you look at the data, right? This is, in my view, this is very important, right? And before you make any decision like that, right? So in terms of either your recruitment process or the talent development, right? So I think before you make any decision, you have to make sure your data is accurate. So that's kind of my view. So like, you have to have a great platform, give you the right data, and also leverage AI and your team, just try to not make a decision without data, especially in the AI era. So
I think that's the last.
Does that answer to your question?
Sure, no, go for it.
Candidly,
Maybe
we're doing. There's been a lot of, yeah, sure. There's been.
Because you sit so far, right?
There's been lots of layoffs, and
Yeah.
I think the question is just, as I hear CEOs, discuss the reason for layoffs, and we've been in conversations where, we hear one thing about AI and it turns out to be other things. My question and thinking is, how do CEOs just make sure that they are staying just as close to the data that helps inform how quickly their companies are growing, so that as you decide, hey, we've gone through a layoff before, I don't want to have to do that again. Is there any advancement in the data that your company has had that you feel more comfortable with?
Yeah, such a great question. Again, back to my point that I make, right? See, either you lay off employee, you double down, double the size of a team. Everything you have to look at the data, right? If for the company, I take a Zoom or any other company, for example. First of all, you look at your top line revenue growth, right? If your growth slow down, for sure you cannot hire more salespeople, right? If your the profitability is really have a problem, you have to think about what can you do to slash the cost, right? You have to have all those data, but sometimes the data not accurate. Meaning, as I mentioned, right, the short term goal, long term. Maybe you have 1 quarter or 2 quarters, you have a profitability problem, or maybe 1 quarter, 2 quarter revenue problem. Are you going to lay off employee? Does not make any sense, right? You have to take a step back. Is this problem a long-term problem? Meaning, if you this quarter, let's say you have a revenue growth problem, you have to analyze, make sure, wow, this already give us enough hints. Next few years, we will have a growth problem as well. How can you make sure you have accurate data to analyze, to help you draw the conclusion? You have to take action now, because no matter what you do, next 2 or 3 years, our growth has a problem. If that's the case, what can you do? You need to focus on cost cut, right? But are there any other ways? You do not have a good data. You see, the simple way, lay off employees. I do not think that's right, unless you look at all the data. This is exactly what happened to Zoom, right? 2022, actually. In our company history, I already told myself from day one, I really do not lay off any employee whatsoever on day one. I keep reminding all of our executives every year until COVID, right? We had so many employees. It's very, very tough decision. I look at all the data, look at our growth, profitability, everything for a few weeks. Finally, the CFO and I, we look at this, we have no any other way around to survive at that time. What can we do? Finally, we made a decision. It's a very tough decision. We already look at the data. The data very accurate, right? And looking back, that's still right decision for us to survive. So yeah. Hopefully, this answers your question. So yeah. Maybe one more last burning question, if you have. So,
Big on Teddy.
I have time. If you have all the questions, I'm okay. Yeah.
One more. One more.
Hopefully, I'm not the only one that wants to know the answer to this, but if it happened, the conversations that you had with the leadership that didn't believe in your vision back when you were at Cisco, what did those conversations sound like? And did it happen over Zoom?
When you were talking to leadership at Cisco and they didn't want to buy into re-architecting.
Was it satisfying?
Yeah.
I think back then, if you do not listen, I did not know. I should leave as quickly as possible, right? To build something. Again, back to Zoom. That's the reason why I tended to, because I'm a founder, I tended to look at it also from employee perspective, right? You always need to spend as much time as possible with those individual contributors, right? Don't ignore them. It's very important. You want to build a culture where every employee, they want to share the candidate feedback to you anytime. They can share the feedback to the CEO directly. I do receive a lot of messages from our employees, right? When you receive those feedback, let's say even do this, do that, you have to take that seriously. As long as you take that seriously, even if sometimes you do not do that, they're still pretty loyal. My advice, don't ignore them. That's really important. So it's very important. And also needed to reward them. Because you think this way, they already work very hard. Why during the weekend? Why do they have free time? They send a message, you want to do this, want to do that, because they care about you. They care about the company. You should reward them. So.
All right, we'll make that the last question. I think Eric's going to stick around for a couple minutes.
Yeah, I have all the time.
Amazing.
Again, until everyone become our customer.
Well, we're gonna
otherwise, I'm not going to leave.
Let me say a quick couple words. We'll wrap up. We'll go upstairs to the roof deck and hang out for a little bit. But again, thank you so much for spending the day with us. We know it's a big commitment. You all have a lot on your plates as leaders, and we so appreciate the opportunity to work with you as partners, to facilitate these conversations, and it just it fills our cup every year that we get to be a part of it, and I hope it fills your cup a little bit as well. And we're deeply appreciative. Thank you again to Talentful, to Greenhouse, to Juicebox. Thank you, Eric, for coming. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank all the Brighties here for it's a full team effort to put together this event. So thank you as well. Thank you to our speakers, for bringing your wisdom. And we really appreciate you all, and we're deeply indebted. And but we get paid back by being here. We love it, and we look forward to it every year so much. And looking forward to doing it again next year. And let's go hang on the roof and have some drinks.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.